back, guys. Hope all is well. Happy New Year. On this episode of the small block Chevy 305 build, I am working on cleaning up the pistons, taking out the piston rings, and getting these pistons ready to get reinstalled. What I first started doing, as you see here, is I started working with that purple powered degreaser, soaked them for a little while, and started working on all that carbon buildup that was on the actual pistons themselves. I removed all the rings. I got one of those cheapo piston ring removers. They weren't too hard to remove, even without that tool. It definitely helped out a little bit, though. So, I mean, for as cheap as it is, it's probably worth getting them. The oil rings came right out. Those were real easy. The top one was probably the hardest, but they all came out pretty easy. Here I'm just, again, soaking these pistons as much as I can, trying to get that carbon broken up as much as possible, trying to make sure that these pistons were in decent enough shape to reuse, which I really can't imagine that they weren't in good shape. I mean, the engine was running well. So, but it's everything that I've researched and watched all these videos on is one of the biggest things is being able to clean these things up. So you're able to inspect them and make sure there's no issues with them. So that's what we're doing here. Shortly, I'm going to be moving on. I was fortunate enough to be able to use one of the ultrasonic cleaners. And I took some of the purple power degreaser, mixed it in or diluted it a little bit with some water, and then started soaking them for about 20 minutes at a time or so. I did about 4 of them at a time, which made it a little bit, went by a little bit quicker. And it did numbers in the, like, I don't know what you want to call them, but where the piston rings sit. That was probably like the hardest thing to really clean up. All the stuff on top of the piston, that was pretty simple. But getting into the grooves of the piston rings was probably the hardest. And utilizing the ultrasonic cleaner helped out so much, saved a lot of time. I'll throw up a photo of them pretty soon here so you can see what it ultimately looked like after they were done. They're definitely a little discolored. I kind of had like a oh shit moment. I got really nervous. I was calling some of my buddies. I called my cousin. I'm like, I think I screwed up my pistons. And luckily, it's just a normal discoloration that comes from the ultrasonic process or how aluminum reacts to those detergents, which, as you'll see later on in the video, very easily cleaned up. And I'm very happy with ultimately the end results. I'm getting a little more nervous as things are getting more and more real with putting this thing back together. I'm don't get me wrong, I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it, but it is a little overwhelming, to say the least. So next step since I'm done cleaning up the pistons here, we're going to move on to working on the crank journals, getting those cleaned up, and then putting the crank back in and getting that squared away. I'm hoping that the cam will be coming in shortly. So here are the pistons after they went through the ultrasonic cleaner, and me kind of like losing my mind. I thought they were all pitted, and luckily enough, what I came to find out is just hit it with some WD-40, a little Scotch pad, and those things shine up nice and pretty. They got primed up nice and good. So here I am just working on that, working on all the skirts, working on the piston ring area and the top of the piston, getting it all cleaned up so I can finally do a quick inspection, make sure everything looks good, hitting it with some brake cleaner, and getting that done. So I'm very, very happy with the ultimate result of how everything turned out. But getting on to what's happening next is, like I said, we're going to throw that. Hold on. Let me have a sip of my beer. We're going to move on to working on the crankshaft, cleaning out those journals. I'm going back and forth. I plan on putting new main cap bolts. I don't know if I necessarily need to put new connecting rod bolts in. Love to get some advice on that. The odd thing is looking at it, I'm not too sure how to remove the actual bolts from the connecting rods. Those things seem to be in there pretty good. So any advice on there, that'd be greatly appreciated. But I'm thinking about just using my regular connecting rod bolts and nuts, keep those, but replacing the, yeah, so as you can see, they cleaned up really well. Oh, wait a minute, that's a dirty one. I'll get it at the end of this one. But, yeah, replacing the main cap bolts, so I got to order some of those. I ended up ordering like an ARP bolt kit for a small block 305, and I was a little disappointed that it didn't come with any of like the main cap bolts or the, the connecting rod bolts or anything like that. It came with like a lot of accessory bolts, oil pan bolts, motor mount bolts, stuff like that. Nothing really too crazy. So yeah, I got to order those, and then I can actually start putting back the rotating assembly, which is, pretty soon. And like I said, I'm hoping that the cam, the ZZ409, should be shipping out to me hopefully in the next week or two. I was very, very, very fortunate enough about a week ago, was able to speak to, I believe her name was Brittany over at Hawks, where I actually ordered the ZZ409 from, the cam. And she was able to reach out to them, and she got confirmation that that it was in process being made. So hopefully they suggested 4 to 6 weeks lead time in total, and they're going to try to get it done a little bit sooner. So that's very exciting. I was very happy to hear that. And just to revisit the cam again, the ZZ409, it is a single pattern cam, 226 duration, 520 lift. And that is based off of 1.5 rockers. I'm going a little bit more. Going to go with the 1.6 rockers, try to open that up a little bit more. Especially with those trick flow heads, I think it's going to marry very well based off of my calculations. I'm expecting somewhere between 9.5, 10 to 1 compression ratio. I think 10 to 1 is very aggressive in terms of an estimate. I think it's going to probably be closer to that 9.5, 9.8 to 1 compression ratio on it. And I think that's going to work really well, especially just, using premium pump gas, but not going to have to go crazy or anything like that. Yeah, as you can see in the video with the piston, it's getting nice and cleaned up here. Those Scotch pads worked wonders in cleaning it all up. I hope everybody had a good New Year's. I'm older now. I'm not in my 20s anymore, so it's another day. But yeah, these things, very happy with how they ultimately came out at the end. Was able to really kind of look at it. I did notice some grooves, small grooves along some of where the piston rings go. Nothing crazy. I don't think it's anything to worry about. Again, I'm going with the feeling of the engine was performing just fine before I ripped it all apart. So I'm assuming putting it back together, we're going to be okay. So we'll see how that goes. But moving on, getting back to that cam. it is very exciting to hear that the ZZ409, which is the number one cam that I wanted to go with for a long time, and those guys over at TPIS, I hear they do a really good job. So I think what's more interesting is at one point I thought you could easily just, I'll just do a custom grind. But apparently there's a lot more that goes into cutting these cams than just like the main focus points that we talk about, the duration, the lift, and there's more to it than that. So even if I did do a custom grind, it still wouldn't perform exactly like the ZZ409 based off of what I had noticed. So, and that also carries a 112 LSA. So I think that's going to still allow it to be very tunable. Again, one of the interesting things about this build is that I am keeping it EFI. I'm not throwing a carburetor on it. Going to go with that Flowtech. Flowtech, Jesus Christ. Phytech Ultimate TPI EFI system. I screwed up too. I thought I didn't need my ECM anymore, or ECU. So I completely disconnected all the wires. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see. I'll tell you that much. I'm dreading doing all those wires again, but it's got to get done. You know what they say? You want to learn something new, just dig yourself deep enough, and just so you have to figure it the hell out. And that's what I'm doing. So yeah, just cleaning these things up, putting them all in their individual bags, keeping them numbered so I know what cylinder they came from, and, getting them all ready. After I was done wiping them down with the WD-40, I'd hit it with some brake cleaner, hit it with a good amount of it, just to try to clean it all off, get any type of other residue that may have been left over from using the Scotch pad, and then just cataloging it in the appropriate bag, in a new bag, because the other ones are obviously all dirty from when I originally took them out of the motor. So when I go to reassemble it, we'll be good to go. I'm going to end up getting some plastic gauge so I can check out the clearances, make sure there's enough in there for the oil passages. And then I got a set of micrometers, which I'm happy to say, the analog ones. So I'm going to just check all of the journals on the crank to make sure those things look good and within the certain tolerances that they should be in. That's the plan. So yeah, we're coming right along. I don't know if any of you guys that are watching are actually going to be joining us on the Power Tour. Hope you are. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking really forward to it. I recently posted a question, because the Hot Rod Power Tour has like their own Facebook page, which is fantastic. Posed a couple questions, but one of them, which I thought was very important, since I'm going to be a first-time long hauler, is, what do the senior long haulers, recommend? And it sounds like a lot of it really is, one, be patient, enjoy the moment that you're in, because it sounds like there's a lot of waiting going around. Just, there's a lot of cars. But also cooling. Cooling is one of the more important things to pay attention to when on this trip. So I did go ahead and I ordered what brand is it? Cold case aluminum radiator. It's a 2-column with, if I recall correctly, it's 1 1/4 tube diameter. And I went ahead, that does have a transmission cooler in it. And I went ahead and got also an external transmission cooler as well. And to go one further step, I went ahead and I've decided that we're going to jet hot the headers. Now, previously, I got the Doug's headers, love them. I got the ceramic finish to them, and they look all right. However, what I was really happy to find out is that the classic finish of jet hot coatings is actually like a chrome-like finish, which is going to really complement the scheme that I'm going with on this build with the jet black, the gloss black block. I'm going to keep the cylinder heads, again, the Trick Flow Super 23 175s with the dual spring. I'm going to keep those bare aluminum. And then I have chrome valve covers. I'm going to, again, paint the intake manifold gloss black and then polish the plenum throttle body and the runners to the first performance TPI intake. So I think with that, chrome-like finish on the headers, the valve covers, and the polished plenum and intake, I think it's going to look really sharp. I do probably have to address the accessory drive, the serpentine belt, and the pulleys. I don't know what I'm going to do with those just yet. I'm probably going to replace the water pump. I mean, they're fairly inexpensive, but it's almost like all those little inexpensive things start adding up over time. Anybody who's done a build, I'm sure you can relate. So, but I think with using the jet hot coating is also going to help a large amount on keeping just everything cooler. Any way to reduce heat under the hood is always going to be great. I'd love to get the functional power blister vents. I don't know if I'm going to go down that road. That seems a little, at this point, I think that can wait. Because I still have to, we're going to send out the transmission to get rebuilt, put a little bit of a, upgrade it so it can handle the power. I've heard that there's plenty of times that people have run it with, similar horsepower, like 400 horsepower and a 700R. I don't want to risk it, especially going on that type of a trip. Might as well just do it right. So sending the transmission out to get a shift kit as well as update the servo, get a Corvette servo, just kind of beef it up a little bit more. Definitely going with a stall converter. It's nothing crazy. The stall converter is probably going to be looking at roughly 2,400. Again, this is still a mild build in relation to what builds can get to. And I'm going to be driving this car as a daily, so there's no reason to, go crazy with it. Yeah, that was my son's hand. That was nice of him. He was all excited. Anywho, so, yeah, just getting, going through the laundry list of things that need to get done. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I was fortunate enough to get one of those Hurst dual gate shifters, which I'm really looking forward to using during autocross runs, and hopefully on the Power Tour there'll be I'm sure there's going to be a drag strip. We'll probably take it down, do a couple runs there. Oh, but getting back to what I was mentioning about the Power Tour. So yeah, they talked about cooling is very, very important. Kind of pack light. Just because you're traveling across country, essentially, literally north to south, and I gotta go mid country just to get there. So it's roughly around, I think, close to 4,000 miles round trip. So by the time I'm done, I'm gonna have to do another oil change. However, some of the other things they definitely mentioned: bring a set of tools, which makes sense, and then just oddball parts. Some things that you might, every car has individual things that you got to pay attention to. So definitely bring just oddball parts, and this way if something were to happen. But it sounds like the community of that power tour is really cool. Sounds like, a lot of helping hands, a lot of like-minded people. So I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a really good time. So this is actually earlier tonight. I finished up with the last 4 Pistons. And yes, if you're wondering, I was wearing slippers. And don't judge me because they're comfy as hell. But slowly but surely we're getting there. I was trying to be cheap and wait for Trick Flow to go on sale, hoping that there was going to be like a Black Friday sale or something. And no, there was no sales, and me waiting ended up being that the Trick Flow heads are now out of stock. So now I'm waiting for those to come in conversation with them. It kind of makes sense. When I spoke to Trick Flow, they had mentioned that, this time of year, they could just go in and recalibrate all their machines, which makes sense. I'm in auto sales, and a lot of the manufacturers shut down their factories periodically through the year to just recalibrate all their machines. So it made a lot of sense to me. So hopefully by February, those get back in stock. I'd like to have this all done by April at the latest, just so that I can, run the car a little bit. My commute to work is about 80 miles, so I can put some good miles on the car fairly quickly and make sure everything's good to go before I go on this run. And also, I'm planning on, since I'm upgrading the injectors, definitely got to upgrade the fuel pump. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to also go ahead and redo my rear end. Luckily, I can do that at the dealership. They're fortunate enough to let me use a lift. So in time, I'll be able to put the car on the lift, drop the gas tank, swap out the fuel pump, and then also what I'll do is take off the rear end and start rebuilding the rear end. Going to go with 373 gears and also a True Track posi, just to beef that up, redo all the axle seals, and just refresh the whole thing, just so one, I can feel all that power that we're putting behind this thing and feel all that torque, and 2, just make it a little bit more of a spirited drive with those 373 gears. I think that will be fine. At first I was worried about that being not a great highway gear. However, I got the 4-speed automatic with the overdrive, and ultimately, it's they put those things in 4th gens, so as stock, and there's other cars out there that are stock that have those all day long. So I don't think it's going to be an issue at all. I think it's going to drive just fine. I bet it's going to sound amazing. One of the things about the ZZ409 cam is that it's definitely going to have a little bit of a lope to it, but it's nothing too crazy, too extreme by any means. So it's still going to be a comfortable ride. It's not going to drone me out as I'm driving down the road. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'll definitely hear it a lot more. So that will be good. I appreciate all the comments. I've been reading them along. Definitely love hearing how some people have, what they're doing with their 305s. If you guys are doing something similar, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to, and if you're doing something similar to this where you're documenting it, please, or even if it's not a 305, it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, like if you're somebody who's never done this before and starting to do a motor, like I'd love to see what you're doing. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a 305. I see a lot of value and a lot of interest in all the motors. Like, don't get me wrong, if someone handed me an LS7, I'm not going to say no. Or even if someone just gave me a 5.3, like, I'd be more than happy to work on it. The only reason why I've been so adamant about keeping this the original 305 is just because when I first bought this car, I originally was thinking about keeping it all stock. I'm sure a lot of people have gone through those phases. And, you know, now I'm tore the friggin' motor apart. But the whole thing is I couldn't find anything. I could find some things, but everything was really like, you know, getting away from that factory look, which I have well documented at this point. Love that factory look of the TPI runners and all of it. So I really wanted to keep it. And every time I looked at something, I was never able to really see any like real results. So that's one of the reasons why. And then, you know, going to all these car shows, it's just, I see LSs in every single one, and I get it. I probably could spend about the same amount of money and put an LS in this thing. Get more horsepower and everything else, and that's all well and good, but you go to these car shows, that's what everybody has. Whether it's the 5.3, whether it's a 6-liter, a 6.2, like LS1, LS3, but they're just, everybody does it. And I just didn't want to do that. I think it's more interesting or more appealing to go against the grain. You know, I was talking to my cousin, and it was funny. He goes, when you were buying this car, I was in between two different Camaros. It was a 1990 IROC convertible. Same color, red. Had about 52,000 miles, was down in Texas. One owner. It was clean, very clean, no accidents. But the seller was just kind of being a hard nose, wasn't willing to move to an area that I felt comfortable with. And I was also looking at the 91. And originally this car had a 91, 92 high-rise spoiler, and they did an amazing job on it. They really did. They fabricated it quite a bit so it would fit properly, and I actually really liked the way it looked, but also, you know, a little different. You know, everyone talks about, oh, is that an IROC? Is that an IROC? It's, at the end of the day, sure, if you want to call it an IROC. I mean, there is no difference between the IROC and a Z28, in at least a 1990 IROC compared to a, you know, 1991 Z28. Same car. So he felt that I went against the grain when I decided to go with the Z28 over the IROC. This one, when I bought it, came with like half the miles. And I will say that it definitely helped that it was pretty much the same price as the one with 52,000 miles. So, actually, no, it was about $250 less. So it kind of worked out. I guess for a collector standpoint, sure, the IROC might be worth more one day, but I have no interest in selling this thing. So that's the least of my worries. So yeah, I guess I kind of try to go a little bit against the grain without even knowing it at times. But for the next build that I do, and there is going to be another one after this, I'm actually planning on raffling it off, which I think would be pretty cool for a charity. But that being said, I'm probably going to go 383. is what I'd probably go down that road. I'd probably keep it. I'm definitely going to keep it EFI. If everything goes well with the Phytech system, I'll probably just do another similar thing. Maybe do like one of the, kind of do a similar build. But again, go with some really good heads and maybe the Holley Ram Air. Or go crazy with the Holley High Rise. Because I do love the way that intake looks as well. So we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of a 383. I will say, and some people have said this to me, like it's more the muffler. I feel like just the LS motors have a different tone to them. And I kind of just like the first gen small block just better. I just like the simplicity of it. Now again, I might be saying that because I've never actually worked on an LS. So that could be partially the case as well. So maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But who knows? We've all been there before too, I'm sure. So yeah, these things, I'm really happy with how they came out. They look nice and clean. They look sharp. They look real sharp. Yeah, I was trying to make sure I got as much grime and dirt off of these as I could, just so no issues when reinstalling them. I think they turned out real well. I really do. I think they look really good. But it's going to be interesting. I am really looking forward to taking this thing down a drag strip. I'm not going to like launch the thing because I'm sure with the way a drag strip is and all that, I don't know what they put at the start line. It sounds like it's something that's very, very, very tacky. I don't want to do anything to my rear end. I've heard, some people running it with very high numbers and like a 700R and I'm sorry, the rear end in these, because it is still just the factory rear end. I'm not replacing it. At one point, I thought that the 4th gen rear end was a little stronger. But again, when I called Hawks, because I was going to buy one of their just used ones and rebuild one of theirs, they had mentioned to me that there is really no strength difference between the two. So that kind of... there's no point of doing that. Now, granted, I would have ended up being able to get disc brakes in the rear, which I still have my drums, but it didn't, price point wise, it just didn't, for me, it didn't make sense at the time. So who knows? I might do a little bit more thinking about that as I talk things out. I reconsider, because one of those rear ends is roughly around $500. Plus freight. I'm sure freight's probably around $250. So $750. And, in conversation with Hawks, it's not like they just take them out of the car and call it a day. When I was speaking to some of their tech guys, they were saying, like, no, we go through them and we make sure they're in good working order. So maybe if they do have a 373, maybe I do throw that in there. Because right now I'm running 1.5-inch spacers in the rear. And from my understanding, the 4th gen rear ends will pop that out a full 2 inches on each side. So if that's the case, I think that puts my tires actually right where I want them. Like they're just a hair inside of that lip on the rear. And I'd like to push it out so it's kind of right up against, right in line with the fender. So maybe I talk myself into going down that road. Still undecided yet. I got a little bit more time before I have to make that decision, though. We'll see how that goes. what I'll do is at the end of the video, I'll actually throw up a little bit more of a close-up of these pistons, because I think they came out really nice. I'm really happy with the results, and looking forward to actually start really assembling this thing back together and getting closer to the end. Over this past month or so, I'm sure just like everybody, it's been a little tough to work on it with, all the holidays and all that stuff. But that's kind of getting freed up and kind of put a little bit more attention to things. But look at that thing. That thing is shiny. That thing is shiny. Yeah, I noticed a little bit of a light groove right where the piston rings go, and it was just like a straight line. So it was kind of weird. But I don't know if that's something I should really be too concerned about or not. We'll see what happens. I think this is my last one here. But yeah, so after this is done, moving on to another project. I'm not too sure what it will be. But I'm probably leaning towards, a 383. Maybe even an LS. We'll see. Like I said, I was at a car show, one of the last car shows I went to of the year. They were auctioning off I think it was a 1966 Mustang GT350 convertible replica. And they sold tickets at $100. It was for a very good cause. And they ended up raising, if I recall correctly, 1,320. I'm sorry, they sold 1,320 tickets at $100 a piece. And I thought they ended up donating that money to a charity, and I thought that was awesome. I thought that was an amazing thing. And I have a charity that's close to me, and it made me start thinking that the next time around, get a car and kind of build it and then do something similar for, like I said, a charity that's really close and dear to my heart, and auction it off. The auction tickets wouldn't be $100. I'm thinking like $20. And I think that'd be pretty cool. Again, it's not going to be like this full resto thing, but it will be a pretty fun car to drive and rip around in. So that's the plan. And there'd probably be a lot more newer parts in it. Would be ideal. But yeah, so that's the next journey after this. So we'll see how this goes. Unless my engine blows up and then I just say, well, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but we'll see what happens. I'll tell you, those Scotch pads do pretty quick work on these pistons. They do a really good job. They're not that abrasive by any means. Just kind of gets that discoloration off. I don't really think I'm removing anything, just other than grime and dirt. So it came out real good. Very happy with ultimately the end result. So appreciate you guys watching along, coming along in this journey. Really looking forward to the Power Tour. It's coming up. It's now that we're in 2026, getting closer. We're 6 months away. I got about 4 months to finish this thing off, and get it on pace and wrap things up. So until next time, be safe.